the world of Dissidia welcomes you, Kupo. We Moogles assist with any arduous task.
I've seen these kinds of characters before. Fortunately, the game is nice enough to teach you how to deal with them.
However, is to fight, fight, fight!
Which is, of course, just going into the options menu and peacefully turning the Moogle off. Why? What'd you think I meant?
Final Fantasy Dissidia NT is a perplexing game, if nothing else. It's riddled with so many problems, like its awkward story, what feels like huge chunks of gameplay missing from the matchmaking, as well as other small pieces here and there. And realistically, overall it just has a lot more working against it than for it, with something problematically flawed in nearly every category. And yet, I really enjoy it. At least for what it does right. At its heart, Final Fantasy Dissidia is an action-based Final Fantasy versus game that really just lets you live out all the fantasy matches that all of us fanboys argue about. The classic grudge matches between heroes and villains, settling the debates between which is better, the 2D games or the 3D games, or just letting you pit the good Final Fantasies versus the bad ones.
No, this can't be.
It can be pretty fun, though I'd argue that this is the type of game that, for all its flaws, many of us, particularly Final Fantasy fans, will still end up loving as one of those flawed gems. Just like games like Fable, The Last Guardian, and the Sonic Adventure games. Though obviously that's not exactly a strong argument, and probably not one Square should put at the forefront of their ad campaign. Though maybe you could put it on the back of the box. But of course, this all depends on the type of gamer you are. Now, I've said this before in other reviews, and I'll probably say it again in future ones too. I suck at fighting games. Even though I'm kind of hesitant to call Dissidia a fighting game. Even though it probably wants to be one. It's actually probably closer to an arcade-style MOBA game. And fun fact, this game was actually released in arcades in Japan before getting a console release. And yes, the console version is the definitive version. But regardless, overall it's still a competitive game, and I'm a scrub. It's in my DNA to lose, which of course begs the question, why the hell would I even get a game like this? Well, for the same reason I got Smash Brothers, TMNT Tournament Fighters, or Denki Bunko Fighting Climax. Because I like the characters in the worlds the games are based on. So, just like in Fighting Climax, I'm coming at this game as a fan first, and whatever genre you want to call this game second. But ironically, it's that second part that delivers a far more satisfying experience than the first. Though, you wouldn't be able to tell just by looking. At first glance, Final Fantasy Dissidia NT looks like it's hitting all the right beats to keep its fans happy. Audio-wise, as long as we mute that Moogle, and pro tip, you can turn it off in the options menu right away, so do that. And once you have, what we're left with is really just gold. I mean, this game is a mashup of Final Fantasy soundtracks, so you know it's gonna be good. I know it's gonna be good, and of course Square definitely knows it's gonna be good. I mean, their track record speaks for itself. Soundtracks, live orchestras, that ancient AOL Final Fantasy radio station, yes, that was a thing. And hell, they've made not one, but 2 games based on their music. Honestly, if there's any flaw with the music at all, it's that some of the soundtracks simply don't match up well to this fast-paced combat that the game offers.
That core is as good as done. Eyes down.
But you can customize the songs that play during the match if some of the music doesn't resonate with you. So problem solved. Though I suppose that some people won't like the character voices in some cases, but that's just mostly personal preference. I for one like to play as the FF2 protag, just so I can get my Johnny on Vashon. Though I can think of a few characters that I would like to see permanently muted.
The writing's on the wall. You don't know how to brawl.
What? She's annoying. She never shuts up.
And speaking of characters, you get it? Speaking because some of the characters couldn't speak in the 8-bit games. Okay, fine, I'll stop. Speaking of the characters, they, alongside the battlefields, the effects, the cutscenes, they all look great and are definitely some of the major draws of the game, as well as getting to see all of your favorite Final Fantasy characters coming together and interacting. Though that's assuming, of course, that your favorite characters are the main protags and villains of each respective game, which clearly means that many fan favorites have been left out. Sorry, Vivi. But I hear that they're planning some DLC down the road, so there's definitely hope, even if you would have thought that there'd be far more characters in the console version than there were in the handheld version from 10 years ago. But hey, at least Type 0 and Tactics got some love. But while we're on the subject, we gotta talk about the PSP games, particularly the story. Now, unfortunately, at the time the handhelds were released, I was dirt poor. I mean, I still am, but I was dirter poor.
Please, sir. I want some more.
So I missed out on those ones. It's definitely one of those things that's high up there on my Final Fantasy list of shame. But I was still curious if this big name Steelbook console release would follow on with the same story, or if it would be all new, attempting to bring in a larger group of players. But unfortunately, at least for those of us who didn't play the previous titles, the story does indeed continue off the handheld story. But it's pretty easy to pick up on what's happening because it isn't that deep and it's really not that good anyway. Gee, I wonder why that is. Honestly, it looks like it's just been shoehorned into the console version anyway, not having been in the arcade version. And realistically, it kinda hurts the game more than it helps it. Though I'd be lying if I didn't say this scene amused me.
Hey, Cloud. Striking out on your own?
It's a one-person job, that's why.
No, gotcha. Wouldn't want to hold you up.
Wow. Even Cloud knows how worthless Vaughn is. Guess he played FF12 too. The way the story mode functions is by far one of the biggest "what the hell were you thinking" moments, because you have to unlock it. Can you believe that? A Final Fantasy game, a series that has made a name for itself by telling grandioso tales of heroes and villains, of small bands of misfits rising up to save the world, has a story mode that's locked at the beginning of the game. And I say beginning loosely. Even 9 hours into the game, I still hadn't unlocked the entire story, which probably has you wondering how one does that. Well, this is where a big part, or really 90% of the gameplay comes in. Aside from the story mode, you have the battle mode, both online and off. And this is where the whole story unlocking thing really bugs me. In order to unlock the points you need to open up the next story part, you need to rank up your online or offline profile, which means winning. And even if you are a veteran of the Dissidia series, changes have been made to the game that are going to take some getting used to, which according to my comrades includes the controls. Now where this becomes an issue is that you can't play through the story as a way to familiarize yourself with characters and gameplay. To find which characters best suit you and gradually improve your skills. The main battle mode, of course, can achieve a similar effect, but you really gotta play a lot of it to unlock the story, and playing offline honestly isn't that much fun. But let's talk about those battle modes and combat, shall we? The combat in Dissidia NT really is the game's bread and butter, and the uniqueness of it really does help it stand out among the crowd, even if the matchmaking options make you question if they've ever played a shooter in the past 10 years. Basically, you've only got two choices of matchmaking. The standard mode, which is the traditional deathmatch, first to 3 kills wins, and the core mode, which is a mode where you defend your crystal from destruction while simultaneously attempting to destroy your enemy's crystal. And that's it. It's admittedly a bit scarce for a big AAA title in this day and age, and I'm kinda surprised that there's no elimination style matches or things like that. But it's like I said before, what it does right, it does really right. Combat is very action oriented, with all matches playing out in 3v3 scenarios, unlike the handhelds which were 1v1. Though it would have been cool if they had included that for the inevitable 1v1 me bro. And even though players are able to run around, fly, attack freely, and really just run amok, the game actually requires teamwork and a bit of coordination if you really want to win. Things like setting up summonings, chaining attacks together, or just coming to your buddy's aid when they're getting thrashed. The game also boasts a class system with certain classes being stronger against others, further emphasizing the use of proper dynamics, though it's not as simple as in some other games, and really with real-time movements and attacking, it still comes down to the skill of the players, teamwork, and the best way to deal out damage. Just keeping things simple, in the standard death matches, the goal is to get 3 KOs overall. You do this by whittling your opponent's health down to 0. Duh. But it's not that simple. The game boasts what it calls the bravery system, not to be confused with another Square Enix game. And in this system, players enter battle with their characters set up as such. You get 2 customizable spells that any character can use, as well as a special ability that's distinct to that character. A multitude of brave attacks, which are just standard moves, a dodge and block, and a variety of customizable HP attacks that are also exclusive to the character. Now, if you look at the bar below, you'll notice 2 numbers, your brave and your HP. The idea is that you want to hit your opponents with a flurry of spells and brave attacks, which in turn will increase your brave while decreasing theirs. The higher your brave is, the more damage your HP attack will do. So basically, if I have 3000 brave, my HP attack will do 3000 damage. Of course, once you land your HP attack, your bravery resets to 0. Also thrown into the mix are summoning crystals, that if you can use them to fill up your summoning gauge, will allow you to call forth summons that, to be blunt, cause chaos for your opponents and can be real game changers. And trust me, I'm not stretching when I say chaos. Can you even tell what's going on here? Though, despite the chaos, at its core, the bravery system is as simple as that. It's an amazing mechanic and combat system that makes for quick, fast-paced matches that are really a lot of fun and allow you to really pick and choose which characters you want to be and how to use them. I really feel that this type of team-based combat system would flourish in the competitive scene along other big-name competitive titles like Smash, Counter-Strike, League, and others. Or at least it would if it didn't have some other issues that are really holding it back from reaching its full potential, with the 2 biggest problems being the lock-on and the HP attacks. First, the lock-on. The lock-on can be finicky, with it seemingly having problems at times switching between enemies that you want to focus on. Nothing is more frustrating than when an opponent starts wailing on you and you can't even target them for a counterattack despite them being right there. Personally, I think the lock-on system would work a lot better if it was more like Kingdom Hearts, with the ability to toggle it on and off, and just having a semi-lock-on towards nearby foes. Plus, it would make fighting 2 people at once so much easier. But the bigger issue has to be spamming the HP attacks. Here's the thing, the whole building up the bravery points is an amazing concept. However, when you hit your opponent with an HP attack, not only does it damage their HP, it stuns them. This is an issue because when your bravery resets to 0, it will gradually replenish to 1000 at a minimum. And it does so in almost the same amount of time it takes for a player to recover from his damage. This means that players can realistically spam HP attacks to stun opponents and then run over to others for the 2v1. Or just keep hitting the same guy with 1000 damage attacks, which will kill pretty fast. And this kind of undermines the amazing system that Dissidia really wants you to use. Personally, I think resetting to 0 and staying there until you can manually rebuild your bravery would be the better option. That or making the bravery reset if you miss your HP attack. But then I'm not the designer, so who really knows? But here's hoping for some patches. Mostly because I really want this game to succeed. Because this kind of fast-paced combat, it's my jam. even if I suck at it. But as it is now, as Final Fantasy Dissidia NT is now, I see this game not really standing the test of time like other long-running competitive games. And as such, I can only really recommend it to a handful of players. Final Fantasy fans will probably enjoy seeing their favorite characters interact in the story, despite how forgettable it is. But the amount of time required to get that story is a chore and might not be worth it if you can't get into the combat system, or if you just don't feel like grinding to unlock said story. Plus, there really isn't that much else to do. Honestly, if you're here for the single player game, I don't recommend this game at all. It was clearly meant with the multiplayer in mind, which obviously it was when you stop to think about how the arcade cabinets worked. Competitive gamers, on the other hand, looking for something fresh, will probably enjoy this game a lot more. Though I should mention now that the messaging system that the game uses when playing with randoms really sucks, especially in fast-paced combat. So get yourself a mic. And friends. Especially friends. Because the way I see it is, if this game can pick up a strong online community or fighting scene, then I think it'll be worth your time. But with any game, that's a really big if. As I think some of the flaws I mentioned with the combat earlier and the lack of overall matchmaking options may end up being its undoing. Which is truly a shame because again, I think this game, at least when playing online, is really fun. Though I'd recommend probably finding some way to rent it first, or maybe borrow it from a friend.
Now, if you all will excuse me, I think I'm gonna go solve a few other problems.
Hey everyone, Spammer D here. So, is your bravery maxed out? Well, if it is, you better use that HP attack to annihilate that subscribe button so you can keep up to date on all my future videos. But in all seriousness, I hope you enjoyed this video and really got something out of it. If you're interested in other Final Fantasy fighters, I'd recommend checking out my video on Airguy's God Bless the Ring, a Power Stone style fighter with FF7 characters in it. Or you can check out whatever YouTube is recommending in the other box, which probably would have been Airguy's, but since I posted it myself, who knows, maybe it's on there twice. But regardless, I'll see you next time, which of course will be the Secret of Mana remake review, so stay tuned.